Hey, welcome back. Chris Hooper here, and I wanted to go over something that has, since we've had this whole NAR lawsuit a while back, the topic of conversation whenever I'm going in for helping a buyer or a seller is commissions. And commissions, keep this in mind, are always negotiable. Which is part of the reason that this whole lawsuit happened. And if you want to find out more about it, you can go to nar.com and look up the lawsuit and all the particulars about that. I won't bore you today about it. But what I will tell you is that, there is a perception from you, the client, sometimes, and, what we are doing as realtors, and we are professionals, we want to make sure that we have the public's trust. And this word commission is something that sometimes has a bad connotation, and I would hope that you kind of look at it from this perspective. Commissions have been the standard for a long time in real estate. It's how professionals are paid. But, if you look at it from the point of compensation, I believe the right word would be compensation. And I just read an article about this not too long ago. And I wanted to share this with you. Because you know what? The word commission to me, and maybe to you, comes off as saying, it like carries baggage. It's like transactional. You're getting a cut of somebody else's money. And, when anybody kind of hears commission, because I even ask myself, when I go into retail stores or something like this, I'm like, hey, are you on commission because you're doing a great job? Or, I kind of follow it up that way. It may look like somebody's like trying to upsell you, right? And then, skim part of that off. If you make, a $500 sale, you're going to make more than you would on a $100 sale. So, it's just a numbers game. But really and truly, that's not what happens in real estate. Agents who are realtors, it's not about taking a piece of the action. It's about earning it. And we are professionals, and we invest our time, our market expertise, our negotiation skill, and we take the risk, because if things don't close, we end up, with nothing. But it's not for just showing homes. It's about delivering results from the beginning to the end, and even afterwards. For my clients, whether they're buying or selling, if they need their closing disclosure after the fact, after they close for tax reasons, if they're buyers, the homestead exemption is a big deal in Texas. And it's really important that gets taken care of. And I follow up with my client, all my buyer clients, about that. But think of it this way. A builder, like when you're working with a builder, they're not commissioned to construct a house, right? They're compensated for their craftsmanship, for their labor, for their materials. And we, in turn, are compensated for our professional services, expertise, and not just for the sale itself. Because I have run into several people in my career where they're like, oh, I would never use a realtor because I don't want to pay the commission. Okay, so you know exactly what to do. You know all the contract forms. You can get all this thing done. You can go through inspections, and you got it, right? Okay, well, best of luck to you, and that's great. When you're talking about compensation, like the word, it kind of reframes the message or the relationship. I think it's professional, it's accurate, it signals that real estate services are not just incidental, they're intentional. And I used some of this that I was reading because some of the quotes were just fabulous, and this was in our Metrotext local, an email that we received like recently. And compensation, it delivers what you did as a realtor with your expertise delivered. It's more than just showing homes. It's your compensation. It's going to be, I'm going to earn mine by giving you market analysis. We're going to talk about strategic marketing, timing. Are there any risk? Are there negotiations that need to be made? Guidance that protects you, the client, because I have a fiduciary duty to you once I take you on as a client to avoid any costly mistakes. It's not about what a buyer and seller spends. It's about what the real estate profession provides. Look at it this way. The compensation is going to be based on the service and the expertise. But when you flip the switch and you go, well, it's my commission is X when I sell your house. I mean, what does that sound? The second one sounds like it's all about me and self-serving, right? And that's not any transaction that I go into. I am always looking out for the client. Number one, you're my client, period. And that's it. And we're going to work through any problems that we can work through. Otherwise, we're going to, probably not work together. The language, if you're dealing with a professional real estate agent, it's reflective of how we see ourselves. I mean, we are professionals. I'm a broker. It took a lot of education for me to get my license. That is the hardest test I've ever taken in my life, and I passed it on the first go-round. It's got at least a 50% or higher failure rate on the first time. So, thank goodness. Attorneys never talk about commissions, do they? No, they don't. Well, they might, if it's one of those ambulance chasers. I guess they talk about it on TV. But they discuss fees. Consultants. If you talk to a consultant, they're talking about retainers. If you're talking to contractors, they're talking about bids and estimates, right? So, when we say compensation, we're in that same professional arena. But you got to get with the right realtor. We're not salespeople waiting for a payday. We are trusted advisors. We have a fiduciary responsibility to you and only to you. And we're compensated on our counsel, our skills, and our strategies. And I love the way that was worded and put. I really believe that when you go into a situation and you're talking to your realtor, think about that they are being compensated for those items. It's not just a commission. It's not just a paycheck. And if it is, and you believe that it's self-serving, find somebody else. Plain and simple. Because when I was in Dallas, in the height of the market, you could swing a cat and hit 10 realtors. And, things have changed quite a bit, and the gravy train is over, and we have to work much harder. I've always worked hard, and I continue to educate myself and have ongoing education so that I can stay abreast of what's going on. So when we're talking, ultimately, when we're talking about compensation, that's an acknowledgement that you and I, as a client, have a relationship. Okay? It's performance and it's the professionalism. It's just the core of the whole real estate thing. And then, so the next time that you're talking to an agent about getting paid, if they're bringing up the word commission or compensation, listen to the words that they say, because commission, and I love this, I gotta repeat this word for word, because commission is paid, but compensation is earned. I'm Chris Hooper, Chris Hooper Realty. I look forward to seeing you next time.